you've been in the industry for 41 years, did you say?
Yes, sir.
41 years. So my dad was in it for just over that before he retired, and speaks so fondly about roofing. And despite the fact he speaks fondly about it, it was an industry that I didn't want to get into at all, Greg. It was something that never appealed. I
It's
don't.
not glamorous to, at least, when people look at it from outside, right? But when you get inside, it's completely different.
But I bet you 41 years ago you didn't envisage that. I mean, how did it happen? What was the catalyst
I
for you
took
getting
I
in?
I took a summer job. I was a runner in college. So this was between my junior and senior year in college. I came home from school. I was living in New Jersey. I was going to school in Philadelphia, and I needed a summer job. I had something, part-time lined up, but honestly, it was just a fluke deal. I was with one of my buddies, and we're having a pint in a pub, and he told me about Allied Building Products, and I literally went down the next day. And in New Jersey, it's all union when you're doing labor like that. So I joined the union on the spot and
Wow.
worked the whole summer, doing hard labor for a roofing distributor by the name of Allied Building Products. And that meant I was loading roofs on a conveyor belt. I was cleaning up, warehouses with sweeping brooms and putting material away, and learning very little about what all these boxes of siding and kegs of asphalt and bundles of shingles really did. Right? It was very much a, hey, just go to work, put a hard day's work in, and when I get home, I'm going to go for a run.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
you know, so, and then I went back to college to finish my senior year. And lo and behold, I got a phone call from the owner of the company. Now, at that time, Allied only had 10 locations, and, New Jersey was their headquarters. So I just got a phone call, and there were no cell phones back then. This is 1983. And the owner actually called my father, and I wound up not having a race that weekend, as fate would have it. I drove up from Philly to New Jersey. It's about a 2.5 hour drive. Interviewed in his house, and as they say, he had me at hello.
Amazing.
So, yeah,
Wow. And
and
what
I've never left. I've
you've
been in
not
the
you
industry ever since.
yeah, that's incredible. And throughout this conversation, Luke and I are really keen to learn a bit more about what that career looked like, Greg. But when you rewind to 1983, which, by the way, was the year I was born,
Ah,
17th of May, 1983. So my dad worked.
cheers.
I know, yeah. My dad, yeah, we'll toast that in Nashville. But
Yeah.
my dad worked with a major distributor at the time called Marley. And Marley were in the pitched roofing sector, still are in the pitched roofing
Mm,
sector.
mm,
Um, he'd been in the industry for about 4 years, and a little bit like you, he started off as a labourer in a builder's yard. So he didn't
mhm,
he didn't really want to be in the roofing sector. He needed money. There was an opportunity, and it was my
mhm.
mum's brother, my uncle, who worked
Ah,
in this yard. He got my dad a job, and within 4 years, my dad was a sales manager for Marley, who is looked as a big brand in the UK. So in 4 years, he's went from sweeping out yards and loading vans to selling all around the UK. And that career would eventually take him all over the world. What
mm.
what, what was the first thing that happened for him? What was the first job? When you got that call? What was the intention?
Yeah, I was an outside sales. I was given an outside sales position, working in Long Island. So logistically, living in New Jersey, and I was commuting to Long Island every morning, and obviously coming home every night. If anyone's ever dealt with New York traffic, that that was certainly
Yeah.
a very compelling offer that I got. But it also taught me how to get up early, because I always wanted to beat the traffic and get out on the island, so to speak. And so I'd be leaving the house at 5:30 in the morning and getting out there by 6:10. It was literally a 40-minute drive to my office. And if I hadn't left at that time, it would have been an hour and a half to get there. Right. So So it taught me how to get up early. Plus, from my running career, I was running 2 workouts a day. I always had a workout in the morning when I got up. And then obviously we did our workouts in the afternoon with the team. So I was always used to getting up early. But yeah, that was my first experience, was outside sales. I knew nothing about roofing other than, oh yeah, that was a roll of 90 pound. Yeah, that was a bundle of shingles. Yeah, that was a roll of EPDM. Don't know what the hell that stuff does, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna start selling it.
Yeah, that's amazing. You've started off in the industry the exact same way as I did in sales. Just on that, actually, so you are a young college graduate. You've went to college in Philly. You are now working for, a decent sized firm who would later become absolutely massive and be listed on the NASDAQ. But
Yeah.
so all of a sudden you're in a sales role. So it must have been something about your personality or your willingness to ask questions or something about you. There must have been something for someone to trust you to go out and sell.
Yeah. So I think, so my previous experience when I was working in the warehouse that the summer before, being a runner, I was, let's just say I had a lot of energy and I got to meet a lot of people. And that was the corporate headquarters where I was working at. So I got to meet a lot of people, in the branch. Obviously, I got to meet every single employee that was in the operational side, right? All the drivers, all the warehouse staff, call it the roof loaders or helpers, we would call them. And so I interacted with a lot of people, and I guess maybe I made an impression.
The reason I ask, Greg, is because there are, I think, a core selection within any country, but there's a core population of young people and also professionals in other industries who think the roofing sector is not for me because I'm not a roofer. And sales is one of those rare professions in any industry that allows you to see the roofers, the specifiers, your architects, engineers, people in estimating and operational roles, project management roles. You get to work with all of them because the salesperson is really critical to make anything work within that industry. And the reason I'm really interested is that as someone who, like you, had bundles of energy when he was younger and therefore made an impression on an organization that otherwise had no reason to employ him.
Right.
I just wonder whether or not there's an angle here for businesses like Luke's, but also for us through this campaign to say, guys, for young men and young women across the US, if you have energy and you are outgoing and are willing to learn and willing to ask questions and willing to start off in a lowly role, you can actually make a great career for yourself. So have you seen that?
Absolutely.
With salespeople? Is that quite
common? Absolutely. So what I think would probably be a misperception is people don't understand that the roofing industry is all about relationships. So if you're a young, energetic person that has a strong work ethic and loves to be with people, this is the industry for you. We absolutely are. It's such a relationship driven business. In my 41 years, I have friends in this industry that I've had since I started. And, and what's great about a relationship business is the fact that, your contractors, your customers not only become your clients, they become your friends. And that is not an easy thing to talk about, especially in today's, call it dog eat dog, world where technology is very important and, where, brain power might in some cases outweigh a strong relationship. Well, that's not the case in our industry. Certainly you need to be smart. You need to have a good business acumen, but if you have a good personality, if you're willing to work hard, if you're willing to outwork those you compete against, you can be extremely successful.
Yeah, that's a really, really important point to make. And you touched on relationships, Greg. Already in the short time that Luke and I have spent with you on these sorts of calls, you've mentioned people by name that you went to college with over 40 years ago. So you're clearly a people person. And I think that in most roles within a profession like roofing, that's what you find. It's why the campaign is called People Make Roofing, because guests like you have spoken about
Yep.
about the value of relationships. But what were those relationships like in your early days, and what importance have they played in your career?
Yeah. So early on, I didn't know a lot, right, about call it the technical side of roofing, and I was actually charged. My first full-time role as an outside sales rep was to sell commercial roofing, and I started in the industry right when single ply was just starting to become, instead of a hybrid roof system, it was becoming more of a popular roof system. At the time when I started, built up roofing was still very, very strong. I was selling asbestos felt when I first started, believe it or not, which obviously was banned shortly thereafter. So when the single ply business really was starting to catch on, there were a ton of roofers that did not know how to install single ply. So one of my great hooks in getting involved and getting deeper in relationships, obviously not only was my ability, I think, to have a good working relationship and have a one-on-one personality, call it alignment with contractors, but also I learned very quickly the technical side, and that allowed me to help, call it, old dog roofers that had asphalt in their blood, to teach them how to lay down membrane and either glue it down or ballast it down, and literally help them learn how to install these systems, which were catching on and were getting more and more popular and were, quite frankly, easier to install. So those two things was yes, building trust by just being real with a customer and treat them like they're your friend, one, and then two, being willing to help them and coach them and train them and teach them how to install different systems that they had never installed before. Those kind of went hand in hand. You know what I mean?
And what about your own career? Because you've started off doing a summer job, and then you've got that phone call, and you've been given the keys to the sales cabinet, so to speak. And off you go. What happened next? Because obviously, 41 years, you've had a decorated career.
Yeah. So what happened next? So obviously, I'm in it a year or two, and I had always told my boss at the time that I recognized right away that Allied was a great place to work. And I said, you know what, I want to accelerate my career whenever the good Lord blesses me with something more to do and more responsibility. So I told my boss I would relocate anywhere in the country. So the first thing that happened was, so this is now 1987. I was 25 years old. I was brought over to run the commercial roofing division for New York and New Jersey. So I went from an outside sales rep in one branch in Long Island to running, at the time, was a $27 million, call it, group of commercial roofing staff that were inside reps and outside reps for New York and New Jersey. So that was my first promotion. I was supervising men that were almost twice my age. I could tell you stories about that. There were some really, really great ones, and there were a couple of challenges I had too. So you talk about learning how to manage people. I had all different types of people that I was managing when I was 25 years old. So that taught me a lot. And I had a new boss by that time who was fantastic to work with. So I had great bosses too. I want to make that very clear. We're talking about relationships. The relationship you have with your boss or with call it your direct reports or people that work for you, that's as equally as important, if not more important. Call it that internal relationship versus the external relationship you have with your clients, your customers.
Wow. I mean, for a company of that magnitude to even trust you at 25 years of age to, it's up to you, the success of a £27 million group. You don't get that in other industries. That is things that you only hear coming from roofing. Now, that is a testament to yourself, Greg, and the fact that you were like, I'll leave everything. I'll go anywhere. I want to succeed. But that's one thing. But you were in the right place with the right people that could see that in you and brought you up through the career ladder. And wow, I mean, you know, what a place to be at 25 to cut your teeth in the business world.
They put a lot of trust in me, Luke. I mean, you talk about a leap of faith. It was great. I mean, and I was getting married at the time, and you know, so I had a lot going on. So yeah.
So within the roofing industry, there's a lot of gaps for young people to come in, but you're doing them a disservice if you're not mentoring them and teaching them and training them. For someone out with the roofing industry that doesn't know anything about roofing, given your experience, you know, is there mentors in the roofing industry for these young people to latch onto that will help them accelerate their career?
I'm sorry, would you repeat the question? I apologize.
Are there mentors in the commercial roofing industry that young people can benefit from to allow them to accelerate their career the way that you did?
Absolutely. I mean, especially if you're involved in association work, certainly there's, you know, are there official quote unquote mentors? You know, certainly there's people that do training, you know, within our industry that, you know, whether those people are with the NRCA or they are, you know, call it certified sales trainers that go around and, you know, work with companies. There are so many people that are willing to help young people in our industry. And, you know, I've always said, you don't, and if any of my team were on this call, they would say, oh, here he goes. I've always said, you do not have to have a title to be a leader. And I think that's very, very important for anyone who's in a leadership position to say that to their team, but also it's very important for, you know, someone who doesn't have a title to say, you know what, I can make an impact. I can impact, you know, those that I do business with or people that I work with. I think that's very, very important. So yes, Luke, there's so many people that are willing to help young people in our industry. Like I said, it's a people business, man. It really, really is. And there's a lot of people, you know, I'm a passionate guy. I think you guys know that. And there's a lot of people that have passion for the young people coming into our industry. And it's a major focus for so many of us, especially the NRCA and the Alliance.
And that's amazing, Greg. Actually, I wrote down your quote there. You don't need to have a title to be a leader. I love it. So for parents, for teachers, for people who are advising younger people on where to go next in their career, if you were to be an ambassador of the industry to them, what would your message be to them?
So for anyone who, like, if you're a teacher, right, you're a trainer, you are in a position of truly impacting people's lives. So I think, because I like, for instance, I remember most of my teachers all through, you know, grammar school and high school and college, but I truly remember the ones that made an impact on my life. So my advice to those people would be, always keep that in mind. Always keep the people that you're talking to, that you're teaching, that you're training. Remember that you will have an impact on their lives, especially if they're young, and that, you know, you can make an impression on a young person, and you can actually coach someone to be better, to be a better man or woman, to be more than who they are today. It truly is possible.
And Greg, when you were at college in Philly, what was the goal? What were you studying? I mean, what did you know that you wanted to be something, or was it just you wanted to be at college?
I knew that I wanted to be somewhere in the business world. So I was a double major. I was a management and marketing major in college, but I had no clue what I was going to do when I graduated, because I was, you know, running at a very high level, world-class level. And I also had aspirations of continuing to run after I graduated, which I tried to do that, running for, a club team after I graduated. But I had also started working full time for Allied. So that was kind of tough to do. But yeah, so I knew I wanted to do something in the business world, definitely people related. Not that I didn't really necessarily know that, right? But my personality and I think my energy level was something that, allowed me to say, all right, I'd like to do something in business.
Yeah.
My mom and dad actually were both working for big companies. My mom worked for the phone company, right? New Jersey Bell, which was a big company. And my dad was working for IT&T, International Telephone and Telegraph. And he would travel all over the world. Matter of fact, he was in the UK, he was in Europe. My dad traveled a lot. So I knew I wanted to do something, in the business world.
So I think, and this is interesting because that's very much like me, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but you found out about this opportunity at Allied over a pint. And I often wonder how many people have fallen into the roofing industry in a similar situation. And I don't think that that's any longer good enough.
Yeah.
We, as an industry, there are so many opportunities for people to travel the world, to be with the same company for 41 years, to meet people, to mentor and be mentored, to learn and to teach. And all of that exists within this industry. And yet young people, whether it was 40 plus years ago or 4+ minutes ago, are in the same boat when it comes to roofing. Unless they accidentally fall upon it, they very, very rarely find their way into it. A really direct question, Greg, do you think that there are issues within the industry that the industry itself has to address in order to brand itself better to young people?
Well, the biggest challenge we have in our industry is labor, right? I mean, there's I think Reed Ribble, who the former chairman, CEO, of the NRCA, right before the pandemic, there were literally 45,000 jobs we could have hired immediately, whether that was, and call it mostly with roofing contractors, right? But even in distribution, even in manufacturing, there were 45,000 open jobs right before the pandemic hit. Obviously that dropped off ever so momentarily. And then obviously the business took off by June, July of 2020, and the demand became unbelievable for the next couple of years. Truly, that labor shortage still exists in the roofing industry. There's 500,000, call it, construction jobs that are needed to be hired for right now. So that is the number one issue for us.
What about beyond that, in terms of sales roles, project managers, superintendents?
All of the above.
Yeah. So what about people a bit like John at the NRCA who have come from a different profession? What would your message be to people who are doing jobs in other industries but perhaps are disenfranchised and they want something that we know the roofing industry can give? How do we speak to them? What do we have to tell them?
I think what I would tell them is you have to try it to understand truly what this industry is all about. I think the most intriguing thing about our industry is once you're in, very few people leave.
Yeah.
I mean, rarely do people leave. And yes, we'll have people move around from company to company. Not me, obviously. I've been with the same one for 41 years, but rarely do people leave because there are so many opportunities. You have not only to join, great companies and grow and develop through those organizations, but also the opportunity to make a great living. Yeah. But now I want to caution for young people, you're going to have to work hard and you're going to have to stick to being patient and wanting, like I did when I was 21 years old, after working for Allied a year, I knew I wanted to do more. I knew that I wanted to, call it, climb the ladder. Never did I imagine where I'd be today, but I knew I wanted to do more. I knew I wanted to truly, sure, I wanted to make more money, but I wanted to do more. And that's the roofing industry, man. I mean, so, from 87 to the beginning of 1990, I did that role in New York and New Jersey as the commercial sales manager. I moved to Seattle in 1990 to run one branch because I knew that was another way that I was going to contribute more to my company. And also that was going to open up even more opportunity for me. Now, let me tell you this. At that time, my wife was 6 months pregnant with my now 33-year-old son, who works for Owens Corning in the roofing industry.
Wow. So there you go.
So I moved to Seattle. I've got a 6-month-old in the belly, and I'm starting a brand new job in a place I've never been to in my life.
Oh my.
Is that not opportunity or what, guys?
That's opportunity. And, wow. And so your full family now works within the roofing industry, be that owns Corning, editing, or, doing.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. For sure. Yep. It's incredible. And so, talk about, a company trusting me, because the reason they asked me to move out there, we had a branch in Seattle that was losing a lot of money. And that branch was the hub branch for the entire Pacific Northwest. So if that branch wasn't, performing, the whole region wasn't performing. So my job was to go out. Now I'm 28 years old and turn that branch around. And then 2 years later, I took over the entire Pacific Northwest region. And then from there, my career catapulted.
I have one more question, Greg, and I think it's a really important one to ask.
Please.
Like you, I have kids, and as a dad to a 16-year-old girl, you'll know that there are so many opportunities.
I've got 3 of them. I got 3 girls.
Yeah, so do I. 3 girls. So the youngest is the boss. She's 5. But the eldest is 17, and because there's so much opportunity and so many ways of direction of travel. In actual fact, what happens with Megan is that she falls within herself and panics and doesn't really know which way she wants to go. And too much choice sometimes can be a burden, as much as too little choice can be. So knowing that you've been in this industry for 41 years, knowing that your wife is in the industry, your son is in the industry. Mm-hmm. Do you advise your 16-year-old daughter to consider roofing? Would you advise her to do so? And what's her interpretation of the industry as a 16-year-old? So
I think absolutely I would. So let me make that a direct question. A direct answer. I absolutely would advise my children to get in the roofing industry. I have 2 older daughters, 22, 21, and then I have a 15-year-old. They have watched me, I guess you could say, in a good way, and then in sometimes not a good way. Obviously, I've traveled my entire career for my job, right? For my various jobs. I've been a road warrior. I've traveled just about every week, guys. I'm getting on planes, right? So my kids have watched their father and their mother have a really strong work ethic and how passionate we are about the industry. Certainly that translated to my son. And by the way, I did not get him that job. He went out and applied to a number of different companies because I told him I would not hire him at the time at Allied. So he went out and did it on his own. But his work ethic is the same as mine. He works very, very hard. He's got a great personality, and he's very successful at a very young age. All I want to do is lead by example for my children. If they choose to take on this industry, I would welcome them with open arms. I will tell you that I talk positively. I explain to them what the advantages of being in this industry are. And, the 21 and 22-year-old, they're like, yeah, okay, that, the 15-year-old gets it. So we'll see what happens. But all we can do, I think, as right, as mentors to our children, is to explain to them how important it is to be, to work hard and to be good to people, right? The thing I tell someone in an interview when they ask me, what do you look for in an employee? I tell them it's real simple. I want to know what's in here and what's in here, right? What's in your heart, what's in your mind, what are you passionate about? And then I explain that if you want a career, if you want a long-term career, this is the place to be. This is the industry to be in. Whether you stay with Beacon, your whole career or not, the roofing industry is the place to be, because you will have incredible amounts of opportunity. You will have, especially if you want to be upwardly mobile, like I was, right? I was willing to go anywhere. Some people, and I don't begrudge anyone who says, I love living where I live and I just want to work here. That's great. Still going to have plenty of opportunity. But especially if you're upwardly mobile and you're willing to go anywhere and to make an impact on people's lives wherever you go, this really is the industry for you. Because I'm telling you, I've watched so many young people thrive and do extremely well. And, it's there for the taking.